Picture this, a country where healthcare is universal, workers have incredible job security, and social safety nets are among the strongest in the world. You'd expect this progressive paradise to have cracked the code on wealth inequality, right? Well, prepare to have your assumptions challenged. Welcome back to Econosphere, where we dive deep into the economic mysteries that shape our world. Today, we're exploring one of the most counterintuitive stories in modern economics: how the Netherlands, despite its reputation for progressive policies, has become a fascinating case study in why traditional approaches to reducing wealth inequality might not work the way we think they do. This isn't just another economics lesson, it's a window into understanding why some of our most cherished beliefs about taxation, social policy, and wealth distribution might need a serious rethink. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let's unpack this economic puzzle together. Chapter 1. The Land of Contradictions. When most people think of the Netherlands, they picture windmills spinning lazily in tulip fields, cyclists navigating Amsterdam's canals, and perhaps some of the world's most liberal social policies. This small European nation has built a reputation as a progressive beacon, a place where comprehensive healthcare is a given, not a privilege, where workers enjoy protections that make job security almost legendary, and where the social safety net catches everyone who falls. The Dutch system reads like a progressive policy wish list. Maternity leave is generous, retirement pensions are robust, and the tax system is designed to redistribute wealth from those who have more to those who need support. Employee protections are so strong that locals joke about it being nearly impossible to get fired. On paper, this should be a recipe for economic equality. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Despite all these progressive policies, the Netherlands harbors a secret that challenges everything we think we know about reducing inequality. According to recent World Bank data on wealth distribution, this picturesque nation actually leads the world in wealth inequality. Not income inequality, but wealth inequality. Yes, you heard that correctly. This revelation forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. If high taxes, strong social programs, and worker protections don't create wealth equality, what does? And more importantly, what does this mean for policymakers around the world who are banking on these exact strategies to address growing inequality in their own countries? Chapter 2. Understanding the Inequality Puzzle. Before we dive deeper into the Dutch paradox, we need to establish what we're actually measuring when we talk about inequality. This is where many discussions go off the rails. People use terms interchangeably when they're actually measuring very different things. Think of inequality measurement like taking a snapshot of an economy at a dinner party. The Gini coefficient, our main tool for measuring inequality, works like this. Imagine you have 10 people sharing $100. In a perfectly equal world, everyone gets exactly $10. Plot this on a graph and you get a straight diagonal line. That's a Gini coefficient of 0, representing perfect equality. Now imagine the opposite extreme. One person takes all $100 while 9 others get nothing. This creates a Gini coefficient of 1, representing maximum inequality. Real economies fall somewhere between these extremes, usually expressed as decimals like 0.3 or 0.5. But here's the crucial distinction that trips up most people. We can measure inequality in two completely different ways. Income inequality looks at how much people earn each year, their salaries, wages, and annual income. Wealth inequality, on the other hand, measures what people own minus what they owe, their net worth, including assets like property, investments, and savings, minus debts like mortgages and loans. This distinction is absolutely critical to understanding the Netherlands situation. When it comes to income inequality, the Dutch system works beautifully. Their progressive tax system and social programs have created one of the most equal income distributions in the developed world. Most Dutch citizens earn relatively similar amounts after taxes and transfers. But wealth inequality tells a dramatically different story. While income inequality measures the annual flow of money, wealth inequality captures the accumulated financial position built up over years, decades, or even generations. And this is where the Netherlands' numbers become truly staggering. Chapter 3. The Mortgage Trap. 2. Understand how the Netherlands became a wealth inequality champion despite its progressive income policies. We need to examine one of the most overlooked factors in wealth measurement: debt. Specifically mortgage debt, which has created a unique situation in Dutch society. In most countries, buying a home requires a down payment. Banks typically want buyers to put down at least 20% of the home's value, with 5% being an absolute minimum. This requirement serves two purposes. It ensures buyers have skin in the game, making them more likely to make payments, and it means that even new homeowners start with positive equity. They own more than they owe. The Netherlands operates under a completely different philosophy. Through a government program called the National Mortgage Guarantee, Dutch banks are encouraged to lend up to and sometimes over 100% of a home's value. If borrowers default and the bank can't recover the full amount by selling the house, the government steps in to cover the difference. This essentially makes mortgages risk-free for banks. The system becomes even more aggressive through tax policy. Mortgage interest payments are fully tax-deductible, meaning a middle-class family might borrow more than they strictly need for their home purchase because the tax benefits make it financially attractive. Until recently, people could borrow up to 110% of their home's value. Let's walk through a concrete example. Imagine a young couple buying their first home for 300,000 euros. In most countries, they'd need to put down at least 15,000 euros as a deposit, giving them immediate equity in their property. In the Netherlands, they might borrow the full 300,000 euros, plus an additional 30,000 euros for renovations or other expenses, walking away with a net worth of negative 30,000 euros from day one. This might sound financially reckless, but it's actually quite logical within the Dutch system. The tax benefits of mortgage interest deductions can make borrowing cheaper than saving, especially for higher earners. The government guarantee removes risk for both lenders and borrowers. And historically, Dutch real estate has been stable, meaning most people eventually build positive equity. However, this system creates a statistical anomaly in wealth measurements. A significant portion of Dutch homeowners, people living comfortable middle-class lives, show up in wealth statistics as having negative net worth. They're not poor by any practical measure, but their debt-to-asset ratio makes them appear worse off than someone with no assets and no debt. Chapter 4. The Measurement Problem. This brings us to one of the fundamental challenges in measuring economic inequality. Numbers can be technically accurate while being practically misleading. The Dutch mortgage system perfectly illustrates how modern financial instruments can create statistical artifacts that don't reflect real living conditions. Consider this comparison. A homeless person with zero assets and zero debt has a higher net worth than a Dutch doctor who just bought a home with a 110% mortgage. By pure wealth measurement standards, the homeless person is richer. Obviously, this doesn't reflect the reality of either person's economic situation or life prospects. This measurement problem extends beyond individual cases. When calculating national wealth inequality, these negative net worth households dramatically skew the statistics. The bottom 20% of Dutch households by wealth might include doctors, engineers, teachers, and other professionals who live comfortably but happen to have large mortgages relative to their current equity. Meanwhile, the mortgage interest tax deduction creates another statistical quirk. High earners with large mortgages can reduce their taxable income significantly, which means the progressive tax system that looks so impressive on paper has much less bite in practice. A software engineer earning 100,000 euros annually might pay taxes as if she earned only 60,000 euros, thanks to mortgage interest deductions. This reveals a deeper truth about tax policy and inequality. Seemingly progressive systems can have regressive effects when they interact with complex financial instruments. The mortgage interest deduction, designed to help people achieve home ownership, ends up providing the largest benefits to those who can afford the biggest mortgages, typically the wealthy. Chapter 5. The Time Machine. Effect but mortgage distortions only explain part of the Dutch wealth inequality story. The more fascinating piece involves something economists call dynastic wealth. Money that has been accumulating and compounding across generations, sometimes for centuries. The Netherlands holds a unique position in economic history. It was arguably the birthplace of modern capitalism, with innovations like joint stock companies, stock markets, and global trading networks emerging in Amsterdam during the 1600s. The Dutch East India Company, which we've explored in previous Econosphere videos, pioneered business structures that still dominate global commerce today. Here's the crucial point. Unlike many other European countries, the Netherlands never experienced the kind of wealth-destroying upheavals that reset dynastic accumulation. There were no successful communist revolutions, no wealth confiscations, no hyperinflation episodes that wiped out old money. Wealthy Dutch families from the 1600s could, in theory, maintain and grow their wealth continuously for over 4 centuries. This creates what economists call the compound interest effect on steroids. Let's explore this with a thought experiment that demonstrates the awesome power of time in wealth accumulation. Imagine 2 investors, each starting with 10,000 euros. Investor A achieves spectacular returns, doubling her money every single year for 10 years straight. That's a 100% annual return performance that would make her the greatest investor in history. After 10 years, she'd have roughly 10 million euros. Now consider investor B, who achieves modest 10% annual returns, roughly the historical average of diversified stock markets. But investor B has a secret weapon: time. After 100 years of 10% annual returns, that initial 10,000 euros grows to over 137 million euros. The lesson? Time in the market beats market timing. And when families have had 4 centuries in the market, the results become extraordinary. This isn't about individuals becoming wealthy through innovation or hard work. It's about the mathematical inevitability of compound growth over extremely long periods. Chapter 6. Old money, new problems. The Netherlands' wealthiest individuals perfectly illustrate this dynastic wealth phenomenon. Take Charlene de Carvalho Heineken, the country's richest person. She's 66 years old and controls the Heineken brewing empire, but she didn't build this business. Neither did her father, grandfather, or great-grandfather. Heineken fortune traces back multiple generations, with the original family wealth stemming from Dutch East India Company investments in the 1600s. This represents a fundamentally different type of wealth than what we see in countries like the United States or China, where billionaires typically made their fortunes within their own lifetimes through technology, finance, or industry. American tech billionaires might be wealthier in absolute terms, but their wealth is newer, more visible, and more likely to be redistributed through philanthropy or inheritance taxes. European old money operates differently. Wealth preservation becomes an art form passed down through generations. Rather than splitting fortunes equally among all children, which would gradually disperse family wealth, European dynastic families often concentrate inheritance in a single heir while providing comfortable lifestyles for other family members. The designated heir receives training in asset protection, tax optimization, and maintaining family privacy. This system maximizes the compound interest effect. Instead of wealth being divided and potentially squandered by multiple heirs, it remains concentrated and continues growing. Over centuries, this approach creates wealth concentrations that are virtually impossible to achieve within a single lifetime. The implications for public policy are profound. Income taxes, the primary tool governments use to address inequality, become largely irrelevant to dynastic wealth. These families don't rely on annual income. They live off investment returns, asset appreciation, and carefully structured financial instruments that minimize tax exposure. Their wealth exists in a parallel economy where traditional redistributive policies have little impact. Chapter 7. Why traditional solutions fall short. This brings us to the heart of why progressive policies haven't solved wealth inequality in the Netherlands, and why similar approaches might struggle elsewhere. Most redistributive policies target income, but wealth inequality is increasingly driven by factors that operate outside the income system. Think of it like trying to control the water level in a bathtub by adjusting the faucet while ignoring that the drain is clogged and water is also flowing in through hidden pipes. Income redistribution adjusts the faucet. It can make the annual flow more equal. But wealth inequality is determined by the accumulation in the tub over time, which depends on factors like asset appreciation, inheritance patterns, debt structures, and investment returns. The Dutch experience shows us that you can have extremely progressive income redistribution, high taxes on earnings, generous social benefits, strong worker protections, while simultaneously having systems that accelerate wealth concentration. The mortgage interest deduction encourages debt among middle-class families while providing tax benefits that are largest for high earners. The lack of significant wealth taxes means dynastic fortunes continue compounding undisturbed. And the government guarantee on mortgages socializes risk while privatizing returns in the housing market. This creates a two-tier economy. The income economy, where most people live and work, is relatively equal thanks to progressive policies. But the wealth economy, where assets are owned and returns are generated, remains highly concentrated. Over time, the wealth economy becomes increasingly disconnected from the income economy, making traditional redistributive tools less effective. Chapter 8. The Global Implications. The Dutch paradox isn't just a curiosity, it's a preview of challenges facing developed economies worldwide. As financial systems become more sophisticated and global wealth becomes more mobile, the gap between income equality and wealth equality is likely to widen everywhere. Consider the United States, where politicians across the political spectrum have proposed policies similar to those already implemented in the Netherlands. Higher income taxes, stronger social safety nets, and more progressive taxation. The Dutch experience suggests these policies might successfully reduce income inequality without touching wealth concentration, potentially creating the same paradox we see in Amsterdam today. This doesn't mean progressive income policies are worthless. They clearly improve living standards and reduce poverty. The Netherlands proves that point. Despite having extreme wealth inequality, Dutch citizens enjoy high living standards, excellent public services, and strong economic security. Most Dutch people live better than most Americans, even those in lower income brackets. But if the goal is specifically to reduce wealth inequality, then income-focused policies appear insufficient. Wealth inequality seems to require wealth-focused solutions. Property taxes, inheritance taxes, wealth taxes, or policies that directly address asset accumulation and intergenerational wealth transfer. Chapter 9. Rethinking Inequality. This raises a fundamental question that goes to the heart of economic policy. Should we care about wealth inequality if living standards are high and opportunities are broadly available? The Netherlands suggests that extreme statistical inequality can coexist with broadly shared prosperity and social mobility. There's a compelling argument that outcomes matter more than distributions. Would you rather live in the bottom 10% of Dutch society or the top 10% of a more equal but poorer country? For most people, the answer is obvious. The Netherlands wins handily in terms of education, healthcare, safety, and overall quality of life. This perspective suggests that inequality becomes problematic only when it translates into differential access to opportunities, political power, or basic needs. If everyone has access to excellent education, healthcare, and economic opportunity, perhaps the fact that some families have accumulated wealth over 4 centuries becomes less important. However, there's a counter-argument worth considering. Extreme wealth concentration, even in prosperous societies, can eventually translate into political influence and policy capture. When wealth becomes sufficiently concentrated, democratic institutions may bend towards serving concentrated interests rather than broad public welfare. The Netherlands hasn't reached this point. Its democratic institutions remain robust and responsive, but the trajectory is worth monitoring. Chapter 10. Looking Forward. So what does the Dutch experience teach us about crafting economic policies for the 21st century? Several key lessons emerge from this deep dive into the Netherlands paradox. First, income inequality and wealth inequality are different problems requiring different solutions. Progressive income taxes and social programs can create broadly shared prosperity and reduce income gaps, but they may have limited impact on wealth concentration. Policymakers need to be clear about which problem they're trying to solve and choose appropriate tools. Second, financial innovations can create unintended consequences that undermine policy objectives. The Dutch mortgage system, designed to increase homeownership and provide tax benefits, ended up distorting wealth measurements and providing regressive benefits. Modern financial instruments evolve faster than policy frameworks, creating ongoing challenges for regulators. Third, time horizons matter enormously in wealth accumulation. Policies that seem minor in annual terms can have dramatic effects over decades or centuries. The compound interest effect means that small advantages, sustained over long periods, create enormous disparities. This suggests that wealth taxes, inheritance taxes, or other policies that directly interrupt compound accumulation might be necessary to prevent extreme concentration. Fourth, the relationship between statistical inequality and lived experience can be complex. The Netherlands demonstrates that concerning inequality statistics can coexist with broadly shared prosperity. This doesn't invalidate inequality concerns, but it suggests that policy should focus on outcomes, ensuring everyone has access to opportunity, security, and dignity, rather than purely statistical measures. The bigger picture Netherlands story is ultimately a story about the evolution of modern capitalism. What started as innovative financial instruments in 17th century Amsterdam has evolved into a complex system where traditional policy tools may no longer be adequate for addressing contemporary challenges. This doesn't mean progressive policies have failed. The Netherlands clearly demonstrates that strong social programs and progressive taxation can create prosperity and security for the vast majority of citizens. It does suggest that if societies want to address wealth concentration specifically, they'll need tools designed specifically for that purpose. The Dutch experience also highlights how economic measurement can be misleading without proper context. Headlines about the Netherlands having the world's highest wealth inequality sound alarming until you understand the mortgage system and dynastic wealth patterns that drive these statistics. This reminds us to dig deeper than surface-level numbers when evaluating economic policy. Perhaps most importantly, the Netherlands shows us that there's no single policy solution to complex economic challenges. The interaction between tax policy, financial regulation, social programs, and historical factors creates emergent properties that can't be predicted by analyzing any single policy in isolation. This complexity requires humility from policymakers and nuanced thinking from citizens. As we face growing inequality challenges around the world, the Dutch experience offers both hope and caution. Hope, because it demonstrates that broadly shared prosperity is achievable even in the presence of significant wealth concentration. Caution, because it shows how policies designed to reduce inequality can sometimes have unexpected effects that undermine their intended goals. The Netherlands remains one of the world's most prosperous and equitable societies by most measures that matter for daily life. But its wealth inequality statistics serve as a reminder that creating truly equitable economic systems requires understanding not just how money flows, but how it accumulates, concentrates, and persists across generations. That wraps up our deep dive into the Netherlands paradox here on Econosphere. This case study illustrates why economic policy is so fascinating and so challenging. Simple solutions rarely work for complex problems, and unintended consequences can emerge from the interaction of well-intentioned policies. What do you think about the Dutch approach? Should policymakers focus more on wealth inequality specifically, or is broadly shared prosperity the more important goal? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more explorations into the economic forces that shape our world. Until next time, keep questioning assumptions and digging deeper into the stories behind the statistics. Thanks for joining me on Econosphere.